My name is Jawad. My friend's name here is Refa. Okay, we're both year 1 students, and we're going to explain the tissues chapter for you foundation students. We know that in class you didn't finish the course yet. We tried our best to make it in time with your schedule, whereas you should have finished the course in class, and then we explained it to you as a revision, but there were complications with the reservation of the class. It just couldn't happen. Okay. So first of all, before I start, do you have any questions? No questions? Everything's fine. Out of curiosity, who's dentistry? Raise your hand. Whoever's dentistry. And the rest is medicine, right? Okay. So do you start? Okay. Start. Okay, so the unicellular organisms, the book, as an introduction, it didn't start with the tissues and whatnot. It started with unicellular organisms and explaining the difference between unicellular and multicellular organisms. Okay, this slide just explains that unicellular organisms can just perform the whole body, the whole function of that cell. Okay, unicellular organisms are mostly bacteria. Okay, the human body, animals. Anything like that is all multicellular organisms. Okay, so in multicellular organisms, you have different groups of cells for different functions. Okay, so one group of cells carries a certain function. So, for example, the brain has a group of cells. The skin has a different group of cells, and muscles have different groups of cells. Okay, so each group of cells has its own function. The brain cells are responsible for transmitting the signals from the brain to the body, to the whole body. Okay. The muscles responsible for moving the body and DNA, etc. Okay. Okay. Quiz. Yeah. Okay. Here the book started. Okay. The book started with the tissues. Specialization in tissues. Individual cells in the body are specialized to perform specific tasks, as I mentioned earlier, okay, which allows the body to function in complex ways. For example, muscle cells, skin cells, and brain cells all have unique structures and functions. These specializations, however, mean the loss of a particular group can harm the entire body. Meaning, if the body loses a certain group of cells, for example, the muscle cells, the body wouldn't be able to move. Okay, other functions might carry on, but movement wouldn't be possible because that's the responsibility of muscle cells. Okay. Okay. There are 4 types of tissues. I will be covering the epithelial tissues. Okay. Refa will be covering the connective tissue. I'll be covering, and then I'll come back to cover the muscle tissue and the nervous tissue. Okay. Okay. First, the book starts with epithelial tissues. Okay. This picture just illustrates the different types of epithelial tissues. We'll touch onto that later on in the session. Okay, it's just a picture for you to see. Okay, so there are 2 types of epithelial tissues. There's the covering and lining epithelium, and there are the glandular epithelial tissues. Glandular epithelial tissues, their main function is just to form the glands of the body. Okay, so they secrete substances. Okay, they form glands like the pancreas, for example, in the body. Covering and lining epithelium, they form the skin's outer surface. They dip into the hollow organs of the body, okay, like the stomach, just the hollow organs in the body, the cavities of the body, okay. All epithelia form boundaries between different environments, and nearly all substances received or given off by the body must pass through an epithelium. Which epithelium do you think this would be? Simple squamous. Correct. Okay. As I mentioned earlier, glandular epithelium make up glands of the body, so they secrete substances. Okay. There are functions of epithelial tissues. Now, functions of the epithelial tissues are completely dependent on their structure. Okay. So, simple squamous, it's small. Okay. So that this makes it easier for substances to diffuse through the tissue. Okay. Meanwhile, cuboidal, it's big, so it can carry substances. That's why it's better for secretion and absorption and secretion. Okay. So functions of epithelial tissues: protection, absorption, filtration, excretion, secretion, sensory reception. These will all be explained later on in the chapter. If you want me to slow down, if you want me to repeat anything, you can just say that. Okay? Okay, characteristics of epithelial tissues. There's polarity, specialized contacts. Epithelial tissues are normally supported by connective tissue. Epithelial tissues are avascular but innervated, and the epithelial tissues can regenerate. So these characteristics distinguish epithelial tissues from other tissues like connective tissues, muscular tissues, nervous tissue. So when you see these characteristics in a tissue, you can tell this is an epithelial tissue. Okay? Next slide. Okay, polarity. First of all, polarity. What do you think polarity is? Difference in structure and function. Mainly, polarity describes the difference between two sides, two poles, different. So this side's different, this side's different. Okay. So in a sense, polarity in epithelial tissues describes it having two surfaces. There's the apical surface and there's the basal surface or the basal lamina. Okay. The apical surface is the top. Okay. It's always exposed to the outside air. Okay. It's either whenever it's lining an internal cavity, it's to the side where it's empty. Okay. Meanwhile, the basal lamina is attached to an underlying connective tissue of the organ in the body. Okay. The apical surface is the top exposed surface of an epithelium, epithelial cell that faces the body's exterior or the lumen of an internal organ. It is often specialized to perform specific functions. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, structure affects function. You probably read that in the orientation chapter. So structure affects function. Okay, so for example, the apical surface can have two functions: either secretion and absorption, or it can propel substances along its surface. Okay, what gives it these two functions? Either microvilli or cellular. Microvilli just increases the surface area. Okay, so when you have more surface area, there's more room for absorption and secretion. Okay, microvilli is mostly available in the intestines. Okay, and the trachea has cellular to sweep mucus and debris out of the body. Okay, so when you're breathing through the trachea, that's what gets the debris out. Okay, beneath the apical surface, there's the basal lamina. Okay, the basal lamina, as I mentioned earlier, is usually it's always, not usually, it's always attached to an underlying connective tissue. Sometimes it's the reticular lamina. Okay, the basal lamina provides a surface for the epithelial cells to attach to. Okay. Okay, so the presence of these two structures gives the epithelial tissues the polar characteristics. So the polar characteristic, meaning it has two sides, as I mentioned earlier. Okay, each of these two structures has its own function. Beneath the basal lamina exists a tissue layer called the reticular lamina. Okay, so the basal lamina belongs to the epithelial tissue. It is made by, secreted, and connected to the epithelial tissue. It belongs to the epithelial tissue. Below the basal lamina, there's the reticular lamina. Okay, the reticular lamina is secreted by, and it just belongs to the connective tissue, which is below the basal lamina. Okay, the reticular lamina. Reticular lamina mainly is made up of collagen fibers. Okay. Beneath the basal, so one of the main functions of epithelial tissues is to just create boundaries between membranes. Okay, so it just separates organs, separates the inside to the outside of the body. It separates the body. Okay, it just divides the body. Okay, so what happens sometimes when you have cancer, for example, the cells of the epithelial tissue do not respect the boundary of the epithelial tissue. So as I've already mentioned, the epithelial tissue normally forms a boundary. Okay, it separates substances, separates organs, divides the body. Okay, when somebody has cancer, the cells keep on dividing. It just penetrates the epithelial tissue. It goes through the epithelial tissue. Okay, so that's what happens in cancer. Okay, next slide. Okay, specialized contacts. This is something that will be explained in more depth and detail in chapter 3. But for now, you just need to know that epithelial tissues are connected or tied together by tight junctions and desmosomes. Okay. The epithelium is well compacted in order to prevent outsiders from moving through the epithelial membrane. The cells of the epithelial tissue are strongly tied together through tight junctions and desmosomes. So it just prevents the epithelial tissue from just separating the cells, and it just keeps it one structure. Okay. Epithelial tissues, as I mentioned earlier, is always supported by connective tissue. Epithelial tissues are supported by a basement membrane, okay, which consists of the basal lamina along with the reticular lamina. So we have the apical surface. Below the apical surface, we have the basal lamina. Below the basal lamina, we have the reticular lamina. There's a picture that illustrates this in the next slide. So there's the there's the basement membrane, okay. The basement membrane is part of the epithelial tissue and part of the connective tissue. It's part of both, okay? As I mentioned earlier, the reticular lamina is secreted and belongs to the connective tissue. The reticular lamina is deep to the basal lamina and is made up of collagen fibers. The basal lamina is secreted by and belongs to the epithelial tissue. The basal lamina is right adjacent to the basal surface and is a non-cellular supporting sheet made of glycoproteins and collagen fibers. So here, there's a picture that just explains everything. For me, when I'm studying, I like to see pictures just to explain things for me, okay? You might not, you might. Everybody studies different, okay? So cilia, this is cilia. Cilia, what does it do? Move things, okay? It's long here, it moves things, okay? Microvilli, what does it do? Secretion, absorption, yes, okay. So, as I mentioned earlier, there's tight junctions and desmosomes. This picture shows where the tight junctions are, where the desmosomes are. For now, you don't need to know that. You need to know that from chapter 3, but I just wanted to include it so you can visualize the structure. Okay? Okay. So here, these are tight junctions. These are desmosomes. You'll have that explained later. Okay. But what I wanted to include this picture for is, so this is the apical surface. Okay. Here, this is the reticular lamina, okay? This is the basal lamina, this is the reticular lamina. The basement membrane is made of the reticular lamina and the basal lamina, together, both. So the reticular lamina is part of the connective tissue beneath, and the basal lamina is part of the epithelial tissue, which is up, okay? Basal lamina is part of both. There's also, the book mentioned the basal region. What is the basal region? Does anybody know? The basal region is just the point in contact. It's on the apical surface. It's just the point that meets the basal lamina below it. So it's just here, okay? It's the bottom part of the apical surface, okay? And it's just what meets the basal surface, basal lamina. Okay, so other characteristics of epithelial tissues are avascular but innervated. So epithelial tissue, where's one place that we have epithelial tissue? Okay. If I ask a question now, I'm gonna ask a question now. So raise your hands if you want to answer. Okay. Okay. So one place we have epithelial tissue is the skin. Okay. So when scratched by an object, normally sometimes you can scratch your skin like this. No blood will come out. Okay. This wouldn't count, but if you scratch your skin, sometimes blood will come out, sometimes it doesn't. What does this depend on? How deep the cut goes into the skin. Okay? Avascular means that they do not have any blood vessels supplying them with nutrients. How do you think the epithelial tissue is nourished?
It gets its nutrition from diffusion from blood vessels that are in the connective tissues.
Okay. Correct. Okay. Next, we have regeneration. Regeneration. So we need regeneration in epithelial tissues because epithelial tissues are in places where they are bound to get damaged. They'll always undergo abrasion or just they'll get damaged. Okay. So regeneration is the process where cells divide. Okay, to just replace whatever is damaged. Okay. Who knows the name of the process that regeneration happens through? Mitosis. Mitosis, correct. Okay. Okay, now we have finished the characteristics of the epithelial tissues. Does anybody have any question? Nothing? Okay. Okay, so classifications of epithelial tissues. Epithelial tissues come in different layers, different structures, different shapes. Okay, so when you're reading the name of an epithelial tissue, you should be able to tell what type of epithelial tissue this is, what type of cells are in it, and how many layers are in it. How? Here, for example, simple squamous. The name of an epithelial tissue is divided into two parts. The first part describes the number of layers this epithelial tissue has, okay, and the second part describes the type of cells this tissue has, okay. So simple describes one layer. Squamous describes the small cell, the smallest one, okay, the flat one. Sparse cytoplasm, flat disc-shaped nucleus, okay, the small one, you know, simple squamous, okay. Stratified squamous. Stratified squamous describes several layers, okay? Stratified, more than one layer, okay? Squamous, the cell type, okay? These are notes from when I was foundation, okay? Okay, خلاص بس. Okay. I cannot stress enough how much these pictures are important. These are very important. These are the most important things in the chapter. You will never study anything more important than this. You will never study anything in foundation more important than tissues. Why? Because you'll be tested on in tissues on quiz 1. You'll be tested on it in the midterm. You'll be tested on it in the final. You'll be tested on it in the bio lab. Okay? It's always tissues. Okay? Study this well. Okay. So, simple squamous, description single layer of flattened cells with a disc-shaped central nuclei and sparse cytoplasm. It's the simplest of epithelia. Okay? Function allows materials to pass by diffusion and filtration in sites where protection is not important. In sites where protection is not important. Why is this type of epithelial tissue not used in places where we need protection?
Only there is one layer and it's not that thick for
Yes, that's good. Okay, location of simple squamous, kidney glomeruli, air sacs of lungs, lining of heart, blood vessels and lymphatic vessels, serosa. Okay? Very important. The most important thing in this picture, location. Memorize the location of all the epithelial tissues, all the connective tissues, all the everything. Memorize all the locations. All locations. Everything. Memorize them by heart. Okay? And the function. Everything in these pictures. Just not this. Not the picture. Just not this. This is not important. You can skip it. Next. Okay. So there are two types of simple squamous epithelium. There's the endothelium and there's the mesothelium. Okay? The endothelium provides a slick, friction-reducing lining in lymphatic vessels and in all hollow organs of the cardiovascular system, and the blood vessels of the heart. Okay, capillaries consist exclusively of endothelium, and its exceptional thinness encourages the efficient exchange of nutrients and wastes between the bloodstream and surrounding cells. We've already discussed this. Okay, the mesothelium is the epithelium found in serous membranes, the membranes lining the ventral body cavity and covering its organs. Okay, the mesothelium will be explained later at the end of the session. Okay, so this is a picture of the simple cuboidal. Again, memorize location, function, structure, everything, description, everything. Memorize. Okay, so it's a single layer of cube-like cells with large spherical central nuclei. Even in the shape of the nuclei, memorize. Memorize everything here. Okay, not the picture again. Okay. Function, secretion, absorption, location, kidney tubules, ducts, and secretory portions of small glands, ovary surface. Memorize. Okay, simple cuboidal. Simple describes. Simple.
Sorry.
Okay, simple again describes one layer. The epithelial tissue is made of one layer. Okay, Columnar describes the shape of the cell or what cell this epithelial tissue is made of. Okay? Columnar. So columnar, rectangular cell. Okay? Single layer of tall cells with round to oval nuclei. Many cells bear microvilli, some bear cilia. So you have microvilli bearing cells in this. So it can be simple ciliated and non-ciliated simple columnar. Non-ciliated simple columnar bears microvilli. Okay? It doesn't mention it here, but non-ciliated simple columnar bears microvilli. Okay? Singular, we read this. Bear microvilli. Some bear cilia layer may contain mucus-secreting unicellular glands, goblet cells. Okay? Function of simple columnar is absorption, secretion of mucus, enzymes, and other substances. Ciliated type propels mucus or reproductive cells by ciliary action. Okay? You'll take this part in the pregnancy chapter. Okay? Just memorize that cilia propels substances along surfaces, microvilli, secretion, absorption. Okay, location. For me, when I was studying this paragraph was overwhelming, so I decided to include this. This just tells you the ciliated are these, and the non-ciliated are these. Okay, non-ciliated bears microvilli. Okay, there's one thing, uterine tubes. In the test, they might not tell you uterine tubes. They might tell you fallopian tubes. Same thing, same meaning, same structure, same everything. Okay, so uterine tubes, the same as fallopian tubes, and they are ciliated simple columnar. Okay. If you're taking pictures of the slide, I'll be sending the slides on the group later. Okay. Pseudo-stratified columnar. Okay, pseudo means fake. Okay. Pseudo-stratified columnar. It just gives the illusion that the epithelium is multiple layers. It's just one layer. Why does this illusion happen? Because you have cells on top of each other. Okay. So nucleus is up, nucleus is down. So it's just not organized. When you see it, you might think it's stratified. It's pseudo-stratified. It's not stratified. It's one layer. Okay. A single layer of cells differing in height, some not reaching the free surface. Nuclei seen at different levels may contain mucus-secreting cells and bear cilia. Okay. Function of pseudo-stratified columnar: they secrete substances, particularly mucus. Propulsion of mucus by ciliary action. Okay. Location, memorize location. This was annoying too. Community. Ciliated variety lines the trachea and most of the upper respiratory tract. Non-ciliated type in males, sperm carrying ducts and ducts of large glands. Memorize the locations. Memorize them all. Don't look at the picture. Okay, transitional. Resembles both stratified squamous and stratified cuboidal. Basal cells, cuboidal or columnar. Surface cells, dome shape and squamous-like, depending on the degree of organ stretch. Where do we use the transitional epithelium? Bladder. Okay. Function: stretches readily, permits stored urine to distend urinary organ. Okay. So in the bladder, the urine is filling the bladder. The cell gets distended to fit for the bladder to fit the urine. Okay. Location: lies the ureter's bladder and part of the urethra. Okay, question. Where in the body would you find stratified columnar epithelial tissue?
Guys, read and then raise your hands, okay?
Read and raise your hands. Don't answer. The girl.
See?
No, don't check.
Guys, we want to hear all your options, okay?
Other
It's not
options.
me.
Other options. See? Raise your hands if you think A. Nobody. Raise your hands if you think B. Raise your hands if you think C. C. Okay, majority C. Raise your hands if you think D. 2. Raise your hands if you think all of the above.
Okay, guys, the most important part. Raise your hands if you think it's none of these options.
No, that's not enough.
No, I'm asking you guys.
It's not an option.
It's not
All
an option.
all the options are.
Okay, the reason we put this was
Because-
to show you something very important.
We put this in the slides because sometimes you get into the test, all the options are correct, are incorrect. Okay, or sometimes they're all correct. Okay, this will happen in your test. So don't panic. If you don't know the answer, move to the next question. Okay, don't panic. Yani don't stress. Don't عادي. Inshallah, you'll answer the rest of the questions. Okay.
Guys, two things to keep in mind with this. So we weren't scaring you. That's obviously not our intention. We want you to keep two things in mind. Number one, read all the options. Because some of you thought it was C because it looked the most appropriate, correct? Like that's how we all think. So read all the options and sometimes trust your gut. You might have thought none of these are correct, but you also might have thought, do I know it well enough to think that none of them are correct? So if you're ever confused with a question, attempt it, but then do bring it up that, I'm confused with this question. But make sure that you check them. Let's carry on with the session.
Okay. And I'm just mentioning this. There are two paragraphs back talking about stratified columnar, stratified cuboidal. I'm not telling you not to study. I'm telling you last year, Dr. Suha said it's not coming, it's never coming, don't study. I'm not telling you not to study. I'm just not including it here. Everything in the book is to be studied. Okay? Okay. Another question. This time, there's a correct answer. Okay? You're observing a histological section under the microscope and see tall cells bearing cilia. From which organ would the sample likely be have taken? Okay, another question. Which of the following is true regarding a histological section taken from the urinary bladder?
Surface cells have different shapes.
The best answer.
That is correct.
Okay, I think this is the last question. Which of the following is true regarding the mucous membrane covering the stomach?
Sorry, did someone say go back?
Did someone say go back? Yeah, go back.
Don't they transitional tissues have many layers of cells?
Which of the following is true? What?
They are they are support.
Yes, but sometimes this will happen. Which is the clearest option? Sometimes, okay, but many stratified squamous has many layers of cells. Stratified anything has many layers of cells. Only the transitional has the dome shape, for example. فهمت
So guys, sometimes you can have more than one correct option. But the idea of the question is to choose the most correct or the one that best suits. So while you are right that there are multiple cells, the fact that the shape changes, that is something that's more accurate. Mostly your questions won't have these kind of vague options, so we apologize, we'll correct that one. However, in general, when you have two options that seem right, please go for the best option.
Which of the following is true regarding the mucous membrane covering the stomach? Mucous membrane is covering the stomach. In the middle.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. the last part of epithelial tissues, glandular epithelia. A gland consists of one or more cells that make and secrete a particular product. This product, called the secretion, is an aqueous, water-based, which is aqueous means water-based. Okay, so it can go in water. Okay. Fluid that usually contains proteins. However, some glands release a lipid or a steroid-rich secretion. Okay, it's just something to memorize if you want to. If you haven't memorized already, just read it twice. You'll memorize. Okay, glands may be endocrine or exocrine. Okay, endocrine, exocrine. Exocrine secretes to the outside. Okay, endocrine secretes to the inside or to the bloodstream, not to the inside, to the bloodstream. Okay. So, I'll have a question about this in the end of the slide. Okay, glands may be unicellular or multicellular. Okay, unicellular glands are scattered within epithelial sheets. Most multicellular epithelial glands formed by invagination, inward growth of epithelial sheet, into the underlying connective tissue. Okay? Okay, so when we say a gland is an endocrine gland, what does that mean? No ducts, okay. Into the body, releases releases hormones into the body, okay? Into the body, or don't memorize it as into the body, memorize it as into the bloodstream, okay? Exocrine glands to the outside, okay? So when we say the pancreas secreted something, some hormone to the stomach, is it acting as an endocrine or exocrine? And raise your hands, endocrine. The question is, if the pancreas secreted something into the stomach, is it endocrine or exocrine? Exocrine? Endocrine? Raise your hands, endocrine. Raise your hands, exocrine. The correct answer is next. The correct answer is exocrine, because endocrine is into the bloodstream. Exocrine to the outside of the body or to to the stomach. Exocrine. Cavities. Into cavities. Exocrine. Endocrine to the bloodstream. That's bloodstream. That's okay. Any questions? Yeah. No questions, huh? Next time. Okay. This is also to be memorized by heart. Memorize everything. Simple tubular, simple branch tubular, everything. And memorize the example, which is the location. This was my mistake in the tissues. Don't make my same mistake. Okay? Memorize everything. Memorize all the glands, memorize everything. Memorize the location. So simple tubular is in the intestine. Okay? Simple branch tubular is in the stomach. Okay? Compound tubular is in the duodenal glands of the small intestine. Just memorize. This is nothing to be explained. This is to be memorized. Okay? Memorized by heart. That's one. Next. Okay, simple alveolar. No important example in humans. I don't know if they'll bring it. They might bring it. It's in the book. Study. Simple branch alveolar, sebaceous gland. Okay. Compound alveolar, mammary gland. Compound tubio-alveolar, salivary glands. If they ever mention another name for the tubular, memorize. If they ever mention any name for the anything, memorize. If it's in the book, memorize. خلاص, they'll bring it. Question. You are visualizing cancerous breast cells under a microscope. What feature will confirm you are viewing the correct sample?
Glands duct with alveolar secretory unit.
That's correct.
Okay, which classification of the following matches a sebaceous gland?
There's no correct option.
Holocrine and alveolar secretory.
The histological section was taken from the salivary gland. Which of the following indicate that the gland is actually salivary? This is from the picture that I told you to memorize last.
Branch tubular aconor duct.
Okay, unicellular exocrine glands.
Can you
Two.
go back?
Yeah, sure.
Go back, go back.
No, before it.
Before. Before, come on?
Yeah.
Come on, before.
What are the first apocrine?
It is mentioned in the paragraph, not in the picture. Paragraph below. I think.
Okay, guys, go through the book for this. But basically, your glands can secrete in 3 ways: holocrine, merocrine, apocrine. Now, apocrine doesn't have proper examples in our body, so ignore that. However, merocrine and holocrine very important. So, merocrine glands are the ones that are just going to secrete the product. So they focus on secreting through exocytosis. So I want you to remember it as merocrine merely secretes. That's it. So the cells are completely fine, the gland is completely fine, there is no damage. However, with holocrine, what happens is the gland or the cell is going to fill up with its product. And when it's going to release it, it's going to explode and then release it. So in holocrine, your secretion is not just the product, you're also going to have cell remnants. So holocrine glands, they basically destroy themselves for the purpose of secretion. Merocrine glands merely secrete. As simple as that. I hope it's clear now.
Okay, unicellular exocrine glands. Goblet cells. In goblet cells, the accumulation of mucus makes the cells distend, making the top of the cell look like glass. Okay, so when there's accumulation of mucus in the goblet cell, what happens? It keeps on accumulating the mucus, until it explodes. Okay, that's how mucus is secreted. Okay, both goblet cells and mucus cells produce mucin. Mucin, this is to be memorized also. Mucin is a complex glycoprotein that dissolves in water. Okay? Mucin is a glycoprotein substance that dissolves in water. Once mucin dissolves in water, it becomes mucus. So, what is secreted is mucin. Once it's in water, it's mucus. I don't know if they'll ask. Maybe they know. Okay, multicellular exocrine glands. Can you hear me like this? Yeah. Okay. Multicellular exocrine glands. A duct is responsible for, so in the exocrine glands, there's the gland and there's the duct, okay? Once the substance is through the duct, it goes to the outside, okay? It's secreted, okay? So the gland is responsible for making the secretion, or making whatever substance the gland is supposed to make. The duct transports it out. Okay, duct is responsible for transporting the secretions of the secretory units of the gland. Okay, secretory unit responsible for producing and secreting mucus or sweat. Okay, supportive connective tissue surrounds the secretory unit, supplies it with blood vessels, nerve fibers, and a fibrous capsule that goes into the glands and divides it into lobes. Okay, so the glands are divided by lobes from the connective tissue, fibrous capsule. Okay, the nearby connective. So as we have already mentioned, epithelial tissue, one of its characteristics is avascular but innervated. So the blood vessels are around it and the connective tissue. Okay, it's not part of it. It's not going into the gland. Okay, so there are types of multicellular exocrine glands. So these are the three that you were asking about. I don't know who asked. Okay, there are merocrine glands. They secrete their. I'm pretty sure it's in the paragraph below. It is. Merocrine glands secrete their product with exocytosis as they are produced. Pancreas, sweat gland, and salivary gland. So the pancreas, sweat gland, and salivary glands are all considered to be what? Merocrine glands. Okay? Holocrine glands accumulate their product within them until they rupture, like the sebaceous gland. Apocrine gland, not in humans, probably won't ask, they might ask, I don't know. Not in humans, accumulator product just below the free surface. Eventually, the apical layer of the apple, crying gland, pinches off, and the secret. This was just copied from the book. Okay, I didn't try to get something from you. Cell repair itself process. Read it from the book. Connective tissue. She'll explain the thing.
Okay guys, so I hope everything's clear so far. If you have any questions, please stop me midway and we'll clear it up. So moving to the connective tissue. So now we have 4 types of connective tissue in the body. These are connective tissue proper, cartilage, bone, and blood. Now the first 2, they have a lot of subtypes. So don't worry, we're going to get into each and every one of those subtypes. Jawad, can you move the slides? Okay, so before we get into the types, there are some common functions and common characteristics. Now when I say connective tissue, of course you're thinking it connects the body. So that's the obvious function. What else can it do? It binds, it supports, it protects, it insulates, it stores reserve fuel. So different connective tissues have different functions. Now there's something that is common with all connective tissues. So no exception, all of them follow this, which is number 1, they all have an extracellular matrix. So now the extracellular matrix is nothing but 2 components, ground substance and fibers. So there are no cells here. So is it living or non-living? Non-living. Very good. So the reason why your connective tissue can bear a lot of weight and withstand a lot of tension and basically handle a lot of force that your epithelial cell cannot is because of this extracellular matrix. So keep that in mind. The next thing is they all have a common origin. So all of them originate from an embryonic tissue, which is known as mesenchyme. You will cover this very soon in pregnancy. So for now, just keep in mind, they all come from your mesenchyme. Now, there is a bit of a differentiation in the vascularization of your connective tissue. So cartilage is avascular. No blood vessels will be there in your cartilage. Dense connective tissue is poorly vascularized. Everything else is well supplied with blood vessels. Next slide. Okay, so now let's go into the 3 components of the connective tissue. Like I said, ground substance and fibers make up your ECM, so we'll deal with that first. So the ground substance, you need to keep 3 main things in mind. Number 1, interstitial fluid. What is this? This is the base of your ground substance. This is the fluid, and basically this is going to act as a sieve for diffusion. So now if your capillaries have nutrients, and you want those nutrients to reach your connective tissue cells, it has to go through this interstitial fluid. Now imagine the interstitial fluid, and then you have fibers in it as well. Do you think the fibers would make the diffusion easier? No. Exactly. So the fibers here, they will hinder this diffusion. The next component is your cell adhesion proteins. Very simple, just think of this as your connective tissue's glue. You have cells, you have a fluid. You need the cells to stay in the fluid, right? So these proteins are going to make sure your cells stay attached to your ECM. And the last thing is the proteoglycans. Now proteoglycans are molecules which have a protein core and they have a glycosaminoglycan attached to them. 2 examples to keep in mind, hyaluronic acid and chondroitin sulfate. Not necessary that they tell you GAGs, they might give you one of these molecules and they'll expect you to know that these are GAGs. Now what the GAGs do is they're going to trap the water that forms your ground substance. So why is it so important for us to know what these are? Because the more the GAGs, the more the viscosity of your ground substance. So the consistency of your ground substance varies with how much of it is composed by GAGs. Now we have 3 types of fibers. So of these, collagen fibers are the most abundant and they're the most common. They're made of collagen and when they're secreted, they start to cross-link. So because of this cross-linking, they are very tough and they provide high tensile strength. So anytime you read about a connective tissue that's, withstanding a lot of pressure, a lot of tension, it has a lot of tensile stress that it can overcome, instantly your brain should think, okay, collagen fibers. Why? Because they're the ones that give this property. The next fibers are the elastic fibers. Elastic fibers are made of elastin. Here, I want you to think of stretch and recoil. So suppose I stretch your connective tissue and you want it to come back to normal. So the way it comes back to normal is because of these elastic fibers. And our last type are the reticular fibers. Now these are also made of collagen, but keep in mind a different collagen. So we're not talking about the same one. And these usually form these delicate networks, and these networks will surround your small blood vessels, they surround your delicate organs. So we're thinking more about, protecting and covering the organs. Sure. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the cells. So there is a common rule of your connective tissue cells, with one exception. I will come to that. So the rule is you have an immature type and an immature type. So you have blast cells and site cells. Now blast cells, they are immature, so they are the ones that are actively mitotic, and they're going to produce your fibers and ground substance. So think of these as the ones who do all the work. And then you have your site cells. Site cells are like maintenance cells. So they're going to check if everything is all right, and if at all you need to conduct any repair, they can go back to the blast form. So in your connective tissue proper, you have fibroblasts and fibrocytes. In your cartilage, you have chondroblasts and chondrocytes. Now, can anyone tell me what it would be for bone? I can give you the beginning word if you want. Okay, say it out loud, okay? Osteoblast and osteocytes. Yes, so osteoblasts and osteocytes. Now, what is the exception? What have we not discussed? Blood. So now, blood's immature cell type is known as hematopoietic stem cells. These are in your bone marrow. You won't see this in your blood. And also, these cells don't make up the matrix. So the plasma of the blood does not rely on these cells. The plasma exists as is. These cells, they get mature and then they come to the blood. We also have other cells, which are your adipocytes. These are fat cells that store energy. You have the mast cells. Mast cells release these chemicals, so please do keep that in mind. You also have your WBCs for injuries, and you have macrophages. Macrophages are your big eater cells. Macrophages are a term you're going to hear in foundation every other lesson. So macrophages, they deal with dead cells and debris. So they're like the cleanup cells of your body. A quick thing to keep in mind, which is not here, your RBCs, so when they are dead, they're also dead cells. They will be cleaned up by your spleen macrophages. Keep this in mind. Very soon I'm going to put a question, and I'm expecting you guys to know it, okay? Next. So first, which of the following cells has the highest mitotic activity? Raise your
She said D.
That is correct. Good job. So guys, like I just said, you have blast cells, site cells. Blast cells are which ones? Site cells are? Right. Okay. So now these are the connective tissues. We're going to go into them one by one. I've put this here not to overwhelm you, but to give you the roadmap of the next few minutes. So we'll start with the loose, then the dense, then we'll go into cartilage, bone, and blood, and we're going to have questions in between. So are you guys ready? Okay. So the first type is your connective tissue proper loose, areolar. Now this is the most common one. So this is like your prototype for connective tissue. So here the matrix is gel-like. You have all three types of fibers in it, and you see your fibroblasts, macrophages, and mast cells. Now what are the functions? First and most important that I want you guys to know is it holds and conveys tissue fluid. The next thing, it will wrap and cushion your organs. It has macrophages to phagocytize bacteria and also plays a role in inflammation. Another thing is it supports other tissues, and it also stores nutrients because of the adipocytes. Okay, no. So now the location. Now because areolar tissue is widespread, you have a few common locations. However, the one key word in these locations is here, lamina propria. So keep in mind, we will be covering this very soon, but in your mucous membranes, you have an underlying layer of connective tissue. That is areolar, and that specifically is called lamina propria. Other locations are surrounding your organs and surrounding your capillaries. Now, we spoke about gags, right? So here in this ground substance is viscous. Why is it viscous?
Yeah, so.
Yes. So here the gag is hyaluronic acid. So there's a high amount of hyaluronic acid making this ground substance viscous. Now when something is viscous, you can't really go through it easily. You can't move through it easily. So your WBCs and unfortunately some bacteria, they have an enzyme called hyaluronidase, and this is going to liquefy your ground substance. Now the reason I put this here is because this is a very fine line in the book, and I have overlooked it once or twice, and then when I noticed it, I realized, okay, no, I want to put this somewhere I will be able to see it. Okay. So here's a question. An old lady took a very hot cup of coffee accidentally and had injury in her oral mucosa. Which of the following connective tissues is found directly under the epithelium lining the mucosa?
Areola.
Okay, and can you tell me what it's called? That areolar tissue, can you tell me the name? The exact word. Areolar is correct, by the way. I want you to tell me the key word. Yes, exactly. Lamina propria. Okay. So our next connective tissue proper is the adipose tissue. So now adipose tissue, I want you to think of what all fat does in your body, and we're going to relate that with this, okay? So first, the matrix is like areolar, except you're going to have adipocytes here. And adipocytes are really big cells filled with fat, and there's so much triglyceride there, it's going to move your nucleus to the side. So if you see something like this, where you have a big fat droplet and you have the nucleus just there, instantly adipose tissue. Don't overthink it. So the functions, it's everything that fat does in your body. So reserve food fuel, insulating against heat loss, protecting your organs. Now where would you see this? Under your skin in the subcutaneous tissue. You also have it around your kidneys and eyeballs. We do have genetic locations like the abdomen and the hips, and you also have it in the breasts. Now certain organs in our body, they work harder than the others, right? So I can't say that my heart and maybe my appendix, yes, my heart and my appendix, do they have the same functions in my body? No. So if between these two, I told you there is fat around one of them, where would you expect the fat? I'm gonna let you guys answer again. If between these two organs, I told you one of them is surrounded by fat, and fat provides energy, where would you expect the fat? Heart, yes, exactly. So around your very active organs like your heart, your muscles, and your lymph nodes, you do have smaller fat deposits. Now everything I've said so far is called white adipose tissue. We have something called brown adipose tissue, and for this I just want you to remember two things. Brown adipose tissue has mitochondria that are going to produce heat. So they're not going to produce energy, they produce heat, and this is very common in babies. Now babies, they don't have the complex mechanism that we do. So they don't have mechanisms like shivering, but they still have to keep warm, right? So then babies, they have brown adipose in them, and that keeps them warm. In adults, you'll have very minute deposits around your neck, your collarbone, your spine, and your abdomen. Jawad. Okay, and our last type of connective tissue loose is reticular. So now reticular connective tissue just has a network of reticular fibers, and the cells here are your reticulocytes. So what it does is it forms a soft internal skeleton, and that internal skeleton is going to support your other cells. So WBCs, mast cells, macrophages. For the location, this is the easiest one. When I say reticular tissue, I want you to only think lymph organs. Lymph organs are your spleen, your lymph nodes, and your bone marrow. So just these three, instantly your answer should be reticular. Okay, so now reticular fibers are very common in the body. Reticular tissue is just these three locations. So make a distinction. Reticular fibers and reticular tissue are not the exact same thing. Okay, so now we have a question. This is the one I told you guys I'm going to bring back. So after completing its lifespan of 120 days, a red blood cell is broken down by which of the following connective tissues?
Areolar connective tissue.
Okay, can we have other answers, guys? I'm so sorry, don't worry, I'll get back to you. Behind you.
Connective tissue.
I'm sorry, what did you say, reticular? Okay, that is correct. So the answer is reticular connective tissue. And now I will explain why this is something I told you guys to listen for. Okay? So when we spoke about macrophages, what did I say? I said your RBCs are degenerated or like they're gotten rid of by which macrophages, which organs macrophages? Spleen. What kind of tissue is your spleen? So what would this be? This is the kind of questions you can expect. I want you guys to link what you read somewhere else with things you read. So as you build new information, go back to the old information and link them together. Okay, and now we're going to go to the dense type. So the first is dense regular. Now for dense regular, I want you to remember one thing. It's very simple. Parallel collagen fibers. So you're going to have collagen fibers going in one direction. That's the main keyword here. Why? Because here you have attachments. So basically this is going to attach your muscles to bones, muscles to muscles. And what it does is it's going to withstand tensile stress. So we said collagen fibers withstand a lot of stress, right? So imagine when I'm pulling in one direction, how do you need your collagen fibers to be aligned? In one direction. So you have parallel fibers to withstand tension when it's one direction tension. Okay, so the locations are your tendons, your ligaments, and your aponeurosis. So in these three locations, your ligaments have slightly more elastic fibers than the others, okay? And your ground substantial is limited, and dense regular tissue is poorly vascularized. So you don't have a lot of blood vessels. Jawad, next. Moving on, we have the dense irregular. So now, dense irregular is like dense regular, one key difference. Here, your collagen fibers are randomly arranged. So you're not going to have parallel collagen fibers. And if you think about it, this makes a lot of sense because not always are you going to have a pulling force in one direction. Sometimes you could be pulled from here, from there, from up, from down. So your parallel collagen fibers cannot withstand that much pulling, right? So in that case, you have irregularly arranged collagen fibers, which is your dense irregular. This is going to withstand tension in one or many. How many directions? All directions. Very good. So it's going to withstand tension in many directions. You'll see it in the fibrous capsules of your organs and joints. You'll see it in the dermis of your skin. Not the epidermis, the dermis of your skin. And you see it in the submucosa of your digestive tract. So again, just here, sheets in those parts of the body where tension is exerted in many directions. Keyword. And the last kind of dense tissue is dense elastic. So this is like dense irregular connective tissue, but instead there are more elastic fibers here. So again, elastic fibers stretch and recoil. So this allows your tissue to recoil once you've stretched it. It maintains pulsatile flow of blood. So it allows blood flow through your arteries and also allows your lungs to come back to their size after you have taken air in. So where would you see this? Walls of your large arteries, within ligaments of the vertebral column. So keep this particular location in mind because it's very easy to mix up. Ligaments associated with vertebral column are dense elastic. Ligaments otherwise, Jawad, can you go to the previous slide? Wonderful. Ligaments otherwise are dense regular. So ligaments for your vertebral column are elastic. Keep that one distinction in mind. Okay, so yeah, we spoke about the locations and... Okay, so we have a question. A teenage boy hurts his knee while playing football. The doctor suspects that he has injured his ligament. What type of arrangement of fibers is seen in such tissues?
Parallel bundles of fibers.
That is correct.
There's no regular.
Do you have a doubt? At the back, I think there was a doubt, right? So yeah, firstly guys, parallel bundles of fibers is correct.
Yes, please speak with Malak.
Yes, there is. We will have a QR code, but that's after we're done with the explanation. Okay, guys, back to this. So ligament knee. So this is the normal case of ligaments, so parallel bundles of fibers. However, if I told you that he injured his vertebral column, what would the answer be? Very good. Okay. Now, which of the following correctly describes cartilage? So before we get into the types of cartilage, I want to quickly discuss the properties, which is why I have this question. So read your options carefully, and then I'll ask you guys which one you think it is, okay?
The answer is B.
Okay, yes, the answer is B. That is okay, so Jawad, can you go back to the question? So the reason I put this is I don't want to bore you with an explanation, but I do want to highlight some things for you. So when I talk about cartilage, you need to keep in mind it is avascular and there are no nerve fibers. So not just no blood vessels, no nerve fibers as well. So how does your cartilage get nutrients? Key word, perichondrium. So perichondrium is this type of connective tissue that surrounds your cartilage. And then nutrients for your cartilage come from here. So it's a very, very important keyword. Repeatedly asked, where does your cartilage get nutrition from? Very good. And here, collagen fibers have a lot of tissue fluid. This is because cartilage. Where? Can I get back to you once I'm done with this? I'm so sorry. So, cartilage has a lot of tissue fluid because cartilage needs to rebound when it's been compressed. So you have a lot of tissue fluid to allow that. And I can take your question.
Why is C incorrect?
Why is?
C is incorrect.
Okay, so C says chondrocytes are the main cell in growing cartilage. Now, growing cartilage wouldn't have chondrocytes. It would have chondroblasts. What are chondrocytes? They are maintenance. And can they go back to blasts?
Yes.
But otherwise, in normal, fully mature, fully ready cartilage, will you see chondroblasts or cytes? Very good. Okay, so let's start with the types of cartilage. So the first one is hyaline cartilage. This is the most common, most abundant cartilage. So here your matrix is amorphous but firm. What that means is here you won't see the fibers clearly, you won't see cells clearly, but it's a very firm, a very powerful matrix. And here you're going to have chondroblasts producing the matrix, and when they're mature, they're going to be chondrocytes and they're going to be in lacunae. So the functions here are to support and reinforce, to serve as a resilient cushion, and to resist compressive stress. So cartilage, always think in and around resisting compressive stress. Now there are a lot of locations here. Please keep these ones in mind. They can ask you any of them. So here it forms most of your embryonic skeleton. So the skeleton for babies, that is mostly hyaline cartilage. And then what happens is that hyaline cartilage, as you grow up, in childhood you're going to have it as epiphyseal plates. Epiphyseal plates are these regions at the ends of your long bones. And that is where your bones are allowed to grow in length. That is hyaline cartilage. So epiphyseal plates, another keyword. It also forms the costal cartilage of your ribs. So I want you guys to look here. You have something called costal cartilages. These are basically the ones that attach your ribs to your sternum. That is also made of hyaline cartilage. And you also have the cartilage of the nose, the trachea, and the larynx. So the next type of cartilage is elastic cartilage. So it's like hyaline, but here you're going to have more elastic fibers. What is the function here? To maintain the shape of a structure while giving it flexibility. If you check your ears, guys, the structure here is very stable, correct? However, you can move it. So it's elastic, but you still maintain the shape. So what is one location you'll find this? Very good. And the other location is your epiglottis, because the epiglottis, again, that is where you're swallowing. So you need to be elastic, but you also need to maintain the shape. Next slide. Our last cartilage is fibrocartilage. Now, the matrix here is similar to hyaline, but less firm. So we know what hyaline matrix is like. Elastic matrix is a little more with elastic fibers. For fibrocartilage, it's a less firm version, and you have thick collagen fibers. Here, now when we describe this, I want you to think of it as something in between hyaline and dense regular. because it has the features of both. So you have the matrix like your cartilage, however it has these collagen fibers, so bundles of collagen fibers, which makes it like dense regular. So the function here is the tensile strength allows it to absorb compressive shocks. So any kind of pressure, any kind of tension, it's able to take it. So here you have rows of chondrocytes alternating with rows of collagen fibers. So your hyaline cartilage cell and your dense regular connective tissues fibers, collagen fibers. 3 locations here, intervertebral discs, pubic symphysis, and discs of knee joint. So I want you to keep these locations in mind. These are frequently asked locations. Okay, and now we have a question. A man has jumped into shallow water and suffered an injury to the anterior part of his thoracic wall. I know you guys have taken organization, so I've specifically put anterior here. Which cartilage will be found here?
Hyaline cartilage.
That is correct. So like I said guys, the coastal cartilages of your ribs are the ones in the front. So those are made of hyaline. Now moving on, we have the bone. Bone is known as osseous tissue. So in bone you have a normal matrix, and that is formed by your osteoblast. And then what happens is you have inorganic salts that deposit. So this is going to make your bone hard, and that's why our bones are so rigid and stiff. Now here, the functions of bones are very simple: supporting and protecting, allowing movement, providing livers for your muscles, and also the marrow inside the bone is where you have hematopoiesis. Now osteons, guys, I want you to read this later on and know what osteons are. So osteons are where you have your blood vessels and nerves that serve the bone. And our last connective tissue is blood. Now blood is the most atypical type of connective tissue. So there is no connecting, no providing support. Why do we still call it connective? Because it originates from the mesenchyme and it has a non-living fluid matrix. The cells here are RBCs, WBCs, and platelets. And here your fibers, you don't have fibers in general, but when there's clotting, your protein molecules precipitate and they form fiber-like structures. The functions are of blood, and where are the location? The location is your blood vessels. Okay, so now we have the muscular tissue.
Sorry, come back. Muscular tissue. Okay, we have 3 types of muscular tissues. We have the skeletal, cardiac, and smooth. Skeletal is voluntary. What is the meaning of voluntary? You can control it yourself. Involuntary, you cannot control it. For example, where is cardiac muscle? Heart. Can you tell your heart to pump blood? No. No, you cannot. Smooth muscle in the intestines. Can you tell your intestines to work? No. So, involuntary, it works without you telling it to. It just works. Voluntary, moving. Okay? Muscle tissues are well vascularized tissues that are responsible for most types of body movement. As in epithelial tissue, the cells in muscle tissue are all tightly packed together. Muscle cells possess myofilaments, elaborate networks of actin myosin filaments that bring about movement or contraction in all cell types. Okay? Okay. So, what are the proteins mainly responsible for movement in muscle? Actin and myosin. Myofilaments they provide the structure. Okay. Again, memorize. Description: long, cylindrical, multinucleate. Memorize multinucleate. Okay? Long, cylindrical, multinucleate, obvious striations. What is obvious striations? Obvious striations, the lines here. Okay? Huh? Okay, function: voluntary movement, locomotion, manipulation of the environment, facial expression, voluntary control, just your body movements as a whole. Okay? Location: in skeletal muscles attached to bones or occasionally to the skin, as Refa has mentioned. Okay? This just explains what is in the previous slide. If you didn't understand what happened in the previous slide, you can read this later because we don't have time. We need to finish. Okay, cardiac muscle. Cardiac muscle. The most important thing that I have to emphasize on here is the intercalated discs. What are intercalated discs? You didn't reach with them. Okay. Intercalated discs is cardiac muscle is branched. Okay, it's not long and cylindrical. Not every cell is by itself. Cells branch and debranch. Okay, so intercalated discs are the points at which the cells join together. Okay, so they leave each other, they separate, and they join again. When they join again, this is called an intercalated disc. Okay, so they're branching. Skeletal muscles are non-branching. Okay, so cardiac muscles are branching. They're striated. They're generally uninucleate cells that connect at specialized junctions. Okay, intercalated discs. The specialized junctions are the intercalated discs. Cardiac muscles are they branch. Okay. Function, it contracts. As it contracts, it propels blood into the circulation. Involuntary control. So, where do you have cardiac muscle? In the heart. What do we do in the heart? We pump blood to the rest of the body. Okay. Location, walls of the heart. Okay. Smooth muscle. In the book, I don't know where exactly. It describes the shape of the cells as fusiform. Okay. Memorize all the other names of all the other names for everything. Okay. Other names, first names, all the names. Okay. Description: cells are spindle shaped. Fusiform. I'm pretty sure it was another name for a spindle shape. Cells are spindle shaped, tapered at both ends, with central nuclei. No striations. So this is the only muscle cell that doesn't have any striations. Okay. So no striations. Cells are arranged closely to form sheets. Okay, this is a picture of what it looks like. These pictures, skip for now. You need it in the biolab, in the final for the biolab. Okay. Function: propel substances or objects along internal passageways. Involuntary control, as we mentioned earlier. Mostly in the walls of hollow organs, for example, the intestines. It just pulls the food. Okay, it contracts, squeezes the food along the intestine. Okay. Any questions? Next. Okay, this just explains what happened there. Okay. A histological section was taken from a bicep. Bicep, what's a bicep? Bicep? Skeletal muscle, صح؟ طيب مين قال skeletal muscle؟ جاوب الحين. Which of the following characteristics can't be found in the muscle? صح, branching cell.
You want it?
I want it. يلا next. Keep going.
Keep it here.
Okay. Nervous tissue and membrane. We nearly finished the chapter. I know you didn't study this. If at any time you want me to repeat anything, I will repeat. I'm here to serve you. Okay? Anything you want, tell me. Nervous tissue. Okay, the description of nervous tissue. Neurons are branching cells. Huh?
No, at the end, please.
Neurons are branching cells. Cell processes that may be quite long extend from the nucleus containing cell body, also contributing to nervous tissue or non-excitable supporting cells. So we have supporting cells and we have the neurons. The neurons are cells that are responsible for transmitting electrical impulses from the brain to the rest of the body. Again? Okay, so we have the brain. The brain controls body functions. Okay, so when the brain wants to send its impulses or its information or its directions to the rest of the body, it uses neurons. Okay, so neurons transmit the electrical impulse, which contains the information telling the rest of the body what to do. Okay, when you read it again, you're gonna understand better. Okay. Neuron processes. So this is a neuron, okay? This is the cell body. This is the axon. This is the dendrite. You need to know these things, okay? Function of neurons. Neurons transmit electrical signals from sensory receptors and two effectors, muscles and glands. Supporting cells support and protect neurons, okay? We have things called supporting cells. Supporting cells will be mentioned in the biolab, okay? at the end of the biolab course. Okay, supporting cells. They are non-excitable. Their function is just to protect and just help the neurons. Okay, the neurons. Part of it is the axon. Part of it is the dendrite. Okay. Location: brain, spinal cord, and nerves. Okay. Nervous system, CNS, central nervous system, nervous tissue, neuron. Just the. Okay, here. Most of this was explained, but neurons. These are highly specialized cells that transmit electrical impulses. They have branching extensions called dendrites, okay, that receive stimuli, and a long process called an axon that sends impulses over long distances. Go back. Okay, so here, this is the dendrite. The dendrite receives the impulses. The axon sends it, okay? So this, here's this function, okay? We have supporting cells, the glial cells. These non-conducting cells provide insulation, support, and protection for the neurons. They're just there to help the neurons, okay? Neurons function, okay? Okay, next. The membranes. We have 3 membranes in the body. We have the cutaneous, the serous membrane, and the mucus, okay? Now that we have described all 4 primary tissues, we can consider the body's covering and lining membranes. These incorporate more than one type of tissue and are so simple organs. There are 3 types of covering and lining membranes: the cutaneous, serous, and mucus. Essentially, they are all continuous multicellular sheets composed of at least 2 primary tissues. An epithelium bound to an underlying connective tissue proper. Some consider the synovial membranes to belong to this group, but they consist only of connective tissue. Synovial membrane is not part of the membranes. Okay, it's below. It's not. It's just not part. Some people say it is. Some people say it's not. It's not. Okay. According to the book, it's not. Okay. So the membrane. What is the membrane? The membrane is part epithelial tissue on the top, the connective tissue on the bottom. Okay. Okay. First of all, we have the cutaneous membrane. Cutaneous membrane. What is it? It is the skin. Legal skin. Sorry. Okay. The cutaneous membrane is your skin. It is an organ system consisting of keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. Did we explain what keratinized is? No. What? Yes?
No.
No. Keratinized. So what is keratin? Keratin is a protein, okay? We have keratinized stratified squamous and we have stratified squamous, okay? Where keratinized stratified squamous is stratified squamous with keratin between the cells or in the cells, okay? What does keratin do? Keratin strengthens the tissue, okay? It makes it withstand abrasion and damage and whatnot. Okay, it just strengthens the tissue and makes it harder. Okay, so we have stratified squamous here in the skin. It's keratinized. In the mouth, in Jawad, it's not keratinized. It's just stratified squamous. Okay, that's just if you want to see what the difference is. Okay, I think that's yes. Yes, and the cutaneous membrane is a dry membrane. Okay. Mucous membranes or mucosae are moist linings found in all body cavities that open to the outside, like the digestive, respiratory, and urinary tract. The name mucosa refers to its location, not its specific center. Okay? Yani, it just refers to the location of the membrane. Okay? Though most are made of either stratified squamous or simple columnar epithelium, depending on where it is in the body. Okay? Here, as I mentioned, stratified squamous, non-keratinized. As we've explained earlier, the locations should all be memorized. Many questions will come on the locations. Okay, this epithelial layer sits atop a connective tissue layer called the lamina propria, which may have a deeper layer of smooth muscle. Okay, mucous membranes are often specialized for absorption and secretion, and while many do secrete mucus, such as those in the digestive and respiratory systems, it is not a defining characteristic. Yani, not all mucous membranes secrete mucus. Some do, some don't. Okay? For example, the urinary tract mucosa does not secrete mucus. Does it secrete mucus?
No.
No, it does not. Okay? Next. Okay, now we have the serous membranes. Serous membranes, or serosa, are moist membranes found in closed body cavities. They line the cavities. Serous membranes, simple squamous, line body cavities. Okay. Each serosa has two layers, a parietal layer and a visceral layer. What is up, what is down? Parietal's up, visceral's down. Okay? Okay, separated by lubricating serous fluid. Serous fluid is important. Okay? What makes serous fluid, makes serous fluid help in the sliding process? Okay, let's take this first. The fluid which contains hyaluronic acid allows the layers to slide smoothly against each other. Both layers are composed of a thin layer, simple squamous epithelium, mesothelium. Okay, so for serous membrane, شو endothelium ولا mesothelium? Mesothelium. Okay, on top of areolar connective tissue. Okay, so what helps make the serous layers slide on top of each other? Hyaluronic acid. The serous fluid, but especially hyaluronic acid. Hyaluronic acid. This is important. This might come. Okay. Serosa are named based on their location. You took this in orientation. In the lungs, what is the serous membrane called? Pleura. What is the serous membrane called in the heart? Covering the heart. Pericardium. And peritoneum. Where is it? In the abdomen. Okay. Any questions? يعني هو أنا شرح كثير كويس أو أنتم مستحيل تسألون؟
Guys, we're nearing the end, okay? So
Yeah, خلصنا. Okay, question. Which of the following tissues is found directly below the mucous membrane?
My favorite question. Okay, you can answer out loud, anybody. At the back? I said it so many times, guys. Under the mucous membrane.
Okay, listen. I'm gonna listen to this. Whenever a question comes like this, okay, it's a connective tissue. You don't know what it is. Put areola. It's everywhere. Okay. But if you don't know what it is, leave it blank. Put areola. Wallah, I'm serious. Wallah, if you don't have any idea what it is, it's mostly areola. If you don't know what it is, okay? What is the correct statement? What is the correct statement about the function of mesothelial cells of serosa? صح. Which of the following serous membranes is described correctly? This you should know. مين قاعد يقول بي؟ أنا. مين؟ أنا. لا تختار مين أنت؟ أنا. لا تختار ارفع ايدك. بي.
Okay, guys, I can sense you're getting a bit squirmy. This is the canon event with tissues. By the time we reach regeneration, your head is exploding with the locations. Trust me, I'm going to try and make this very simple. We're going to go through it very quick. And maybe it might not make sense now because your doctors haven't reached here. However, eventually, once you do this on your own, it's going to make sense. It's still recording, right? Yeah, it's recording. Perfect. So let's begin. Before we get to the steps, when you have a tissue injury, one of three barriers is going to get invaded. So you have mechanical barriers like your skin. So maybe when you get injured, your skin is, you cut open your skin, or your cilia, or chemical barriers like the acid in your stomach. Now, when a barrier in your body gets disrupted, your body is going to react in one or two ways. So we have two things that can happen: an inflammatory response and an immune response. At your level, at tissues right now, I only want you to keep two things in mind. Inflammatory responses are non-specific and quick. So there is no specificity for it, and it's just going to happen as soon as the tissue is injured. So non-specific and quick. Okay. Immune responses are specific responses. So now because it's specific, it's going to take longer to happen. So just keep that in mind. Inflammatory, non-specific, quick. Immune, specific, longer. Now before I get into the steps, I want to clarify two terms for you guys. So there's regeneration and fibrosis. Both of these deal with replacing your destroyed tissue. But in regeneration, you're going to replace the destroyed tissue with the same type. So if your epithelium is damaged, it's going to be replaced by epithelium. Fibrosis, on the other hand, is when destroyed tissue gets replaced with something called scar tissue. Now, scar tissue is a type of dense connective tissue. It's a little bit different from what was there initially. So you're going to have some differences in function if you have fibrosis. Now, which of these will happen? Two things to keep in mind. What type of tissue got damaged? So there's something called regenerative capacity, which we will come to. And the second thing is what kind of injury was it? How severe was your injury? Okay, Jawad, next. So now we have 3 steps in the journey of tissue repair. I want you to keep in mind the order of the steps. Also, in each step, who are the main players? Because that is what the doctors will like to ask you guys. So step 1 is inflammation. So what happens is when your injury happens, the nearby cells are going to release something called inflammatory chemicals. The only job of these chemicals is to make your blood vessels leaky. When your blood vessels are leaky, now white blood cells, clotting proteins, other fluid, they're able to reach the injury site. So you want these players to come to the injury site. The next thing that's going to happen is you're going to seal off that injury area. Now you have an injury and it's exposed. So the first thing you want to do is cover that area. Why? Because you don't want the bacteria and the toxins to spread. That is when you have a blood clot that forms. So clotting is going to seal off the area. And then the top of that clot dries up, and that's what a scab is. So essentially a scab is just the dried part of the blood clot. Next slide. Now the second step is organization. This is the main step where you're going to have all the repair going on. So the first thing is that clot that we spoke about, that is going to be replaced by granulation tissue. For granulation tissue, keep in mind it's nothing but a bunch of fragile capillaries, and it's named for these capillaries. So it's just a tissue with a lot of capillaries in it, and these protrude from its surface. Which is why when you pick on your scab, you have a lot of bleeding, because it's just capillaries underneath. So your clot gets replaced, number 1. Number 2, your fibroblasts are going to produce growth factors and collagen fibers. Because now we need to fix the gap. We got rid of the clot, and now we need to fix that gap. So now when this healing is complete, fibroblasts will revert back to the resting state. What is the resting state called? For this one, what would it be? Fibro? Very good. So either they can do that or they'll undergo apoptosis. So now after that, we're going to have your macrophages. Macrophages, the only thing they do is phagocytize dead cells and debris. So you want to clean up the area because while you're repairing it, you don't want your dead tissue, your dead cells to still be there. So you're going to get rid of that while you're fixing this tissue. All while this is going on, your surface epithelial cells, they're going to start multiplying, and then your granulation tissue, they'll start to come on top of it. So you're going to have your epithelium reformed. And now the last step is regeneration and fibrosis. So now the fibrous area is going to mature and contract. So once it's fully ready, it's going to start contracting. So the 2 edges of your wound are going to come together. While this happens, the epithelium under your scab will thicken, which is why eventually the scab moves away. So you don't always have the scab with you, right? Eventually it goes, that's because the epithelium under it has thickened. Now you'll end up with a fully regenerated epithelium and underlying scar tissue. Guys, this statement is talking about what we are dealing with here. You have tissues where you have complete regeneration, you'll have tissues where you have fibrosis. So it's subjective to which tissue we're talking about. Next slide. So now we're at the end. So after this, we are done and we have your quiz. So just hold on. So the regenerative capacity is something that is very important. Now different tissues in our body regenerate to different extents. Not all of them regenerate the same way. So you have tissues that regenerate extremely well. These are your epithelial tissue, your bone, your areolar tissue, and your dense irregular tissue. In moderate capacity, your smooth muscle and dense regular. So these cannot regenerate as well as the ones above, but they can regenerate better than these. Now, for weak capacity, you have skeletal muscle and cartilage. That means these can regenerate, but they'll take a lot of time. I don't know if anyone here has had their cartilage injured. It takes a lot of time to heal, right? That's because it has weak regenerative capacity. And the last ones are your cardiac muscle and nervous tissue. These, unfortunately, do not regenerate in our body. So there is no regenerative capacity here. So when you see these locations, instantly you need to think of fibrosis. Now in fibrosis, we said there's scar tissue, correct? So now scar tissue is very strong. But you need to keep in mind that scar tissue is replacing another tissue. And that tissue probably has its own distinct function that it performs. So there is a homeostatic imbalance in your book, a little box. I want you guys to read that. It comes towards the end, I think 4.5. That talks about when scar tissue replaces other tissue, what potential problems can happen. So you can have adhesions, you can have difficulty with movement. So please do give that a read. Okay, so this is a small, very random mnemonic our seniors gave us, and it is our pleasure to pass it on to you guys. So I want you to remember this: EBAD, SD, SKCCN. I know it doesn't make sense, but just try memorizing that, because when you break it down, EBAD, epithelial, bone, areolar, dense, irregular. These regenerate very well. Here it says vascularized well, except for epithelial, all of them vascularized well. Epithelium is? Avascular. Okay. SD is for smooth muscle and dense regular. Differentiate smooth from skeletal because the next one has SKN. So these two have moderate regenerative capacity. Then we have skeletal muscle and cartilage. These have a weak regenerative capacity. And lastly, you have the cardiac muscle and the nervous tissue. These do not regenerate at all. So what will they be replaced by? Scar tissue, right? Next. Now we have a question. Which of the following indicates the proper sequence of tissue repair? Guys, raise your hands. A. That is correct. Okay, so guys, this question we've been very generous, and I've only put one option that starts with inflammation. If this comes in your quiz, I can guarantee all these options will start with inflammation, because they know you know the first step is inflammation. So I want you to keep in mind the second two steps and know the sequence of what happens there. It's very important to know that sequence so that you can tackle the questions. Okay, next.
One thing they always do, they'll put three options: inflammation, and the third option not inflammation. So you say, this one, it's one. The inflammation is right. Okay. So you need to memorize properly.
Thank you. Okay, next. Guys, one more question and we're almost done. Arrange the following tissues in order of poorest to greatest regenerative capacity. Okay, so there's a lot of answers here. Guys, say it out loud. D. So the correct answer is D. All of you are correct. And for all of you, we have candy, so please do take that later. So guys, the correct option is D, because nervous tissue is the poorest, epidermis is the